So in this episode, I'll be talking about the data export. So in the previous episode, I spoke about data import. Now, data export can be very useful if you wanted to export the data out of the Salesforce. So usually what happens, right? Let me give you a very simple scenario. Let's say you have an org, a very legacy org, and you wanted to, extract the data, records and files and other stuff from the org. Um, you can use different options to do that. You can write your own extraction process and connect the Salesforce to it to extract the data from it, which might involve more work to do it, or you can use an out of box functionality, which is pretty straightforward. That's called data export. Now, there are different tools that we have in place, like we have AutoRabbit, which can be used for data archiving as well as the data backup. So the data export, when you hear the term data export, right? The people usually use data export if they wanted to export the data so that they can archive it somewhere or they can store it somewhere, right? So it might be the case that they don't have a data backup system in place, like Own Backup, for instance, or GearSet or AutoRabbit, right? There are different products out there in the market. So if they do not have this capability in house, some companies what they do, they schedule a data export process, and then they have some kind of process or service that sits behind the scene, which uploads all these files to S3 buckets in AWS, right? That's one way you can do it. So there are different ways you can do it. So as you can see, the use cases can be extended as per your business requirement, but I just wanted to talk about a very simple scenario here, right? So now how to approach this process, right? Now, obviously, data export is a very important process because you cannot give access to everyone to do the data export, right? Because it's a security risk because you are extracting the data, a very important data, right, from an org, and it contains user information and other details. So you got to be very careful. So mostly, in big enterprise companies, right, the place where I do consulting as an architect, we have Data Loader, another tool that's in place, which is a free tool. It's an installer. We use it and install in the jump box, and an admin team is only authorized to use this tool to export the data whenever it is needed, right? Not every Salesforce engineer will have the opportunity to do that because obviously, like I said, it is not a good process to do so. Now, let's say if you're the only person who's looking after import, exporter, and everything to do with the Salesforce org administration and architecture uh, perspective, then it's very important for you to know how to do that, right? So the first thing first, sorry, log into org, and then go to this Gecko icon, go to setup, right, and it will take you something here, and here just type data export and click on here. It will take you to the screen something like this. So you can export now if you want. Let's say if you wanted to do just one off, or you can also schedule an export, right? If you say I want to export now, and it asks you what all stuff you want to export, right? You can say I want it to include images, I want it to Salesforce files, and you can choose include all the data, right? If you wanted to um, export everything, then you can do start export, right? I just don't want to do that, but excuse me. Or you can schedule it, right? Let's say if you wanted to schedule, say, one day of every month or something like that, you can do that, and or of every, you can schedule the frequency as per your requirement, and it's pretty much the same what we've done before. Instead of doing it one off, you can schedule it, right? So it happens behind the scene for you. And then you have a process in place. You wanted to pick up the file, maybe service that runs behind the scene and picks up the file and upload it, right, to the right destination, maybe to AWS or to Azure or wherever, or the Google Cloud. Okay, so another thing you can use is the data loader. Like I said, the one we use, right? It's an installer. It's a downloadable installer, not the web tool. It's a downloader installer, so it's free. You can use it, and you can schedule and you can export it as per your convenience. But if you're not interested to use that, if you wanted to use the data loader, you can use that. So what you have to do, so do dataloader.io, log in with Salesforce, and you go to login. It will take you to the respective login, and you can go to new task, and you can do export, and pick an, pick an object, and select all. Next, save and run. You can choose the destination too if you want. Right. So this is how easy it is to do a data export, right? Now, from an architecture certification perspective, especially this one, you might get quizzed, one or two questions. So it's very important to know. So the one thing I often advise my students, right? Don't learn the certification just for the sake of it, but learn it in such a way that you will be using it in day-to-day implementation, right? Architects do get involved in implementation. I do get involved in implementation more from advisory perspective, right? Because tech lead will reach out to me and say, hey, we're going to use this tool, we're going to use that. What do you think? Which one is the best? So based on that, I'll make a decision, and and then we take it to the software working group, or you can say the architecture working group. And once we make the final call, we use a tool, right? So that's all I wanted to cover in the episode. Hope you guys have an amazing day. Thank you.